So I'm going to explain what the dimensions are, and remember, this is my opinion. I gathered this from 15 years, 15 years of research. This is what I came up with. So we'll start from the first dimension. The first dimension is a dimension of where humans don't have value. They don't value life, and don't really understand the importance of life. In the first dimension, you'll find the murderers, the rapists, alcoholics, people who litter, things like that. Um, that's the first dimension. Then you got the second dimension. The second dimension, people believe what they hear. Perfect example of the second dimension is church, or people who believe in, they hear rumors and they believe it without researching it themselves. But religion is a perfect example of the second dimension. You believe what you hear or what are told without researching yourself. Third dimension is you believe what you see. 9/11 is a perfect example of that. Television, movies, you tend to copy. That's where all the idols are. People who follow trends, um, watch movies, believe in these movies, and they base their life, or they surround their life around these movies. Like you got the Twilight thing, and then you got, like, next thing you know, you got like people claiming they're vampires and wanting to be vampires and stuff like that. That's the third dimension, which is actually can be pretty fun. I like the third dimension because, like Disneyland, we went to Disneyland. That's the third dimension. A whole bunch of illusions. It's not real, but man, this dude had skills at making things look so real. The third dimension. People like fancy cars. I have a classic Chevy, and I love my Chevy. That's part of the third dimension. Um, some clothes and stuff like. There's certain clothes I like, and third dimension. You believe what you see. Then you got the fourth dimension. The fourth dimension is where people who want to get out of the third dimension, third, second, and first dimension, by creating their own realm. Um, Facebook is pretty much, it has all the dimensions in it, but there's more fourth dimensional people on Facebook. That's why you see a lot of fantasy characters. Um, you see like these warrior prince, these fantasy warrior girls and guys, and all the unicorns and all this and that. Now keep in mind, this does not mean that it does not exist. It means that people have not learned to manifest them yet, but it's a world that they create to escape the third, second, and first dimensions. It's a world that keeps them comfortable, that they create. Now, and then you come to the fifth dimension. This is the dimension I live in, when I'm not in the third, but the fifth dimension is actually being able to bring forth the fourth dimension to reality. Honestly, the beginning of creating a fifth dimension, you need one other person that believes, one or two people. Two is best because you got the Trinity. But let's say you need two more people who believe in the same thing. Like, for example, if we're all together right here in my yard, and there was three of us, and I said, "Look behind you, there's a dragon." And as soon as everyone looks, that's called the void. When everyone is turning like this and they don't know if there's really going to be a dragon behind them or not, that's a 50-50 chance that there will really be a dragon behind them. Now, as they're turning, it's almost like 90%. The only thing that keeps it from being 100% dragon being right behind you when I say that is the 10% mental that a human is able to use. Average human's using 3, but you're able to use in this realm up to 10. So that's the only part that keeps the dragon from actually grabbing you or something, But when I say, look behind you, there's a dragon, and when you're right here in the blind spot, you're 90% believing there's a dragon. If all three people look behind them, the fifth dimension does exist because they looked, because they believe the dragon was there. That's why if you say that to children, the whole classroom will look. This is part of my research of the 5 dimensions was children. working with children. When you say there's a dragon behind them, they will say there is. Now it gets deeper though. All those kids will look, and some of them will actually say they saw it. Okay, so you got like a class of 10 children, 20 children. You say, look, the dragon behind you. 20 kids look behind them. They all believe in the dragon. 5 of them say, I really saw it. Now, if those 5 say the dragon was, they describe the dragon the same, blue, these kind of wings. If those 5 children say they saw the same dragon, they really saw it. And then it's your fault for not seeing it. The caster. So that's the 5th dimension. Now, when you hear me talk about these dimensions, and I don't mess with the 1st and 2nd. I'm sorry. The 3rd is I go to the 3rd dimension to have fun with my family and stuff, and because most of my people where I go visit these dimensions, the 3rd dimension, that's where they all live. In San Diego, everyone lives in the 3rd dimension, so I have to go to their dimension. Now, the dimension, there is no better than the other. The 5th dimension is not better than the 1st, okay? Because and the 4th is not better than the 2nd. There's no dimensions better. There's no higher levels. There are even levels. Either you want to live in the 1st dimension of where the murderers live and the alcoholics and all that stuff, or the 5th dimension where you create anything you wish. Rocks balance, clouds move. So many things happen, So, and there's no one here in my 5th dimension to tell me these things are not possible. My whole family has seen the same things, and we see things, because we all believe in it. But no dimensions are better than the other. Because check this out. When you go when you visit the 1st dimension as a 5th dimensional being, the 1st dimension can see you way better than the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, because they are not, they're programmed, they don't think. The 1st dimensional people don't really think. If I was to balance a rock in a public place, which I did do this when I went to Seaport Village in San Diego, and I did do this. When you balance a rock in a place, community place, public place, where 1st to 5th or 4th dimension people live, the 1st dimensional people are the ones who freak out the most. They bug out, man. They think you're like a wizard, and think they will actually ask you if you came from a Stargate or something, okay? 2nd dimensional people are more likely not to believe in the rocks. They say you're doing the bad thing for balancing rocks, and you're showing off and performing fake, because in their Bibles they say, like, watch out for people who do magic, because they're evil. And that's not true, man, because I am not evil. I balance rocks. I do a lot of things, but when you balance a rock, the 1st dimensional people believe it the most. Thus, they are your existence. 5th dimension is powered by 1st dimension. Then you got the 2nd dimension and the 4th. Let's take the 2nd dimension. In the 2nd dimension, in the Bibles, people are walking on water, splitting seas with staffs, moving mountains, bringing people from the dead. This is the work of the fantasy world. And in the 4th dimension, these people believe in this stuff, the fantasies and fantasy characters, staffs, magic, and this and that. I'm not saying, once again, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, because when I do things in the 1st dimension, those people thought it did not exist. Like David Blaine and all these people floating off the ground and this and that. It works great for the 1st dimension. You notice when David Blaine and Chris Angel do these tricks, the 1st dimensional people freak out. If I saw it, I'd be like, oh, cool, man. You learn an ability. That's it. And I walk off. But the 1st dimension freak out, man. They create these, David Blaine's are ran by 1st dimensional people. It's almost like the Occupy thing, It's like the rich cannot survive without the occupiers, and since the occupiers are there, they're actually keeping. They're not making Wall Street weaker. They're making them stronger. You'll notice the Dow, when the Occupy Wall Street started, the Dow was just going out the roof. Silver and gold went out the roof because the Occupy people are the ones who keep these guys afloat. Third dimension is very balanced, man. You know, there's no, there's no alter dimension with it. So I hope that makes sense. And I hope it cleared up some things. Now, if you want to learn how to create your fifth dimension, which there is no death, there's no pain, I can tell you how to look at it that way, where there's no pain, there's no death, and it's a beautiful place. It's probably one of the closest things to heaven you can get, or Middle Earth that you can get without dying. All right, just write me if you want to. I'll break it down on how to do this stuff. All right, peace.